Namaskar. Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Pradeep Gokhale from Central University of Tibetan Studies, Sarnath. The present module is entitled The Question of the Number of Steps in Pararthanumana. I have myself written this module. This question is important in Indian logic. Mainly from logical point of view, because when we are dealing with pararthanumana, we are dealing with argument proper, and therefore what should be the steps in an argument. When we generally talk about a valid argument or a sound argument, then which kinds of steps are to be permitted, how many steps are to be permitted. All these are issues important from logical point of view. This whole debate started from Gautama, the author of Nyaya Sutra. He introduced the model of 5-step argument, which was called Anumana Vakya, inferential sentence, and the steps in this argument were called limbs or avayavas of this sentence. So this argument was called Panchavavayavi, the sentence which consists of 5 limbs. Gautama attached so much importance to this pattern of argument that in the context of debate, he regarded breaking this pattern as a mark of debater's defeat. That is what is called nigrahasthana. Then Nayayikas who followed Gautama adhered to this rule of 5-step argument. That is, Gautama held that there should be 5 steps and those 5 steps should follow a particular order. Now suppose instead of 5 steps somebody states only 3 steps or 4 steps, or he just gives some additional steps, then that would amount to the defeat of the one who gives that kind of argument. Similarly, if someone changes the order of the steps, then also it would amount to defeat of the debater. So this was the significance of the number 5 and the particular order of the steps. But later on we find that sanctity of this rule was questioned by logicians belonging to other schools such as Mimamsa, Vedanta, Buddhism and Jainism. Some of them presented the model of 3-step argument, whereas others presented a model of 2-step argument. Now we will begin with Gautama's 5-step argument. Gautama in Nyaya Sutra number 1132 to 1139 defines the 5 steps, that is 5 avayavas. First is called pratidnya, which can be translated as declaration. So declaration was defined as indication of what is to be proved. Then second step is hetu, which can be translated as reason. Reason means that which proves what is to be proved on the basis of similarity with the example, likewise on the basis of dissimilarity with the example. So if we give positive instance, then the reason assimilates that positive instance with the present case and proves what is to be proved, that is proves sadhya. Similarly, with reference to negative instance, the hetu points out the dissimilarity with the negative instance and proves the sadhya. Then third step is called udaharana, that is example. So example means the instance which is similar to what is to be proved by possessing its property, or it is the opposite kind due to contrast with what is to be proved. So in inference we will have Hetu as a kind of property and Sadhya as another kind of property, that is Hetu Dharma and Sadhya Dharma. So, in Drishtanta, Hetu Dharma and Sadhya Dharma are together. In Paksha, only Hetu Dharma is seen, and so this will be the similarity between Paksha and Drishtanta, that Hetu Dharma is common to both in the case of positive instance, and on the basis of that one argues that there will be Sadhya Dharma also. In the case of Vaidharmya Drishtanta or negative instance, in Paksha Hetu exists, but in negative instance Hetu does not exist. So, this will be the difference between negative instance and Paksha. On the basis of this difference, one argues that there will be difference with reference to Sadhya Dharma also. That is, in negative instance Sadhya Dharma does not exist. So, as a point of contrast, in Paksha Sadhya Dharma should exist. Then the next step is Upanaya, that is application. So, application means summing up what is to be proved as it is like that or it is unlike that. So, after giving the instance, one points out that Paksha is like positive instance or Paksha is unlike positive instance, and then the last step is Nigamana or conclusion, where there is reiteration of the declaration on the ground of reason. The above definitions of 5 steps of 5-step argument clearly indicate that the nature of inferential statement Gautama was advocating was analogical reasoning based on positive analogy and negative analogy. So, argument from positive analogy, just to cite an example, argument from positive analogy will be the hill is fiery because it is smoky, like the kitchen. The hill is like that, therefore it is fiery. This will be the argument from positive analogy. Argument from negative analogy will be Pratidnya, the hill is fiery, Hetu, because it is smoky, and Udaharana, unlike the lake, Upanaya, the hill is unlike that, and Nigamana, therefore it is fiery. Now, this is about inference as analogical reasoning. So, as I said later on, Nayayikas accepted Vyapti statement as an inseparable part of an argument, and therefore now they did not reject the model of Panchavayavi, which was the model of analogical reasoning. They retained it but inserted Vyapti statement into it. So, what happens is Udaharana, which is like the kitchen or unlike lake. So, along with that, the statement of Vyapti was included. So, now the argument from positive concomitance, now instead of positive instance and negative instance, we will say, or positive analogy and negative analogy, we will say Nayayikas introduced 2 types of arguments: argument from positive concomitance, that is Anvaya Vyapti, and argument from Vyatireka Vyapti or negative concomitance. So, argument from positive concomitance will be the hill possesses fire because it possesses smoke. Then in Udaharana we will have whatever possesses smoke possesses fire, like the kitchen. And then Upanaya will be the hill possesses smoke which is pervaded by fire, and Nigamana is therefore the hill possesses fire. Similarly, argument from negative concomitance will be the hill possesses fire because it possesses smoke. Whatever lacks fire lacks smoke, like the lake. Upanaya will be the hill does not lack smoke which is pervaded by fire, and Nigamana will be therefore it possesses fire. We find that Nayayikas not only presented this 5-step argument, but they also tried to give justification for that. That is, they tried to justify that all the 5 steps are necessary. They have some distinct role to play. Every step has some distinct role to play. And we find the first justification in Vatsyayana's Nyaya Bhashya. Here he defends the 5-step argument against some Nayayikas who had proposed at that time the form of a 10-step argument. Vatsyayana argues that the additional factors such as jidnyasa, samshaya, then shakya prapti, then prayojana and samshaya vyudasa, these were the additional steps suggested by some Nayayikas, but Vatsyayana says that they are not useful for proving the conclusion, whereas the 5 steps accepted by Gautama constitute the proof of the thesis under consideration, and he gave justification in the following way. First justification was that the 4 steps represent 4 pramanas, that is Shabda, Anumana, Pratyaksha and Upamana respectively. And there is Pratijna represents Shabda Pramana, Hetu represents Anumana Pramana, then Drishtanta represents Pratyaksha Pramana, and Upanaya represents Upamana Pramana, and collectively these 4 pramanas establish the conclusion, that is Nigamana. This was one justification given. Second justification was that the 5 steps lead to the conclusion in a mutually correlated way. So there is some kind of mutual expectation, mutual akanksha or expectancy among the 5 steps. This was the second justification. And third justification that Vatsyayana gave was that each step serves some special purpose, and therefore no step in the argument is without any significance, without any function, and therefore all steps are justified. So what is the purpose that each step serves? Pratijna states the relation between the property to be proved, that is sadhya dharma, and its property bearer, that is paksha. Then what is the role Hetu plays? Hetu states the capacity of the probans to prove the probandum through similarity or dissimilarity with the instance. Then what is the role Udaharana plays? Udaharana demonstrates the probans-probandum relation between 2 properties in one place. Then what is the function that Upanaya serves? It explains how probans and probandum exist in a common substratum, namely the subject of the thesis. And lastly, Nigamana excludes the contrary possibilities with regard to the probandum once the probans-probandum relation is established in the example between the 2 properties. So after this particular model was presented by Gautama, then justified by Vatsyayana and later Nayayikas, there was a reaction from other schools. They criticized this 5-step model. Now what was the criticism? One point of criticism was that when the conclusion is already stated in the form of Pratijna, is it necessary to repeat it in the form of Nigamana? So we can get 2 forms of this inference. One could be called Pratijna oriented form, where we have Pratijna but no Nigamana, and that will be sufficient according to the critics. Or we could have another pattern where we state the Nigamana, that is conclusion, but we don't state Pratijna. So Pratijna oriented form will be something like A because B, that is Pratijna because of Hetu and other steps. And Nigamana oriented form will be B, that is first we state premises and then we say therefore A. So these are just two ways of expressing the same argument. So if one argues by following one way, then the other way will be redundant. This was one criticism. Another point of criticism is that is Upanaya necessary? Because in Upanaya, that is the fourth step, Vyapti and Pakshadharmata, which are stated earlier, that is in step 3, Vyapti is stated, and in step 2, Pakshadharmata is stated. So if they are stated earlier and they are simply combined together in Upanaya, should there be a separate step which combines the earlier steps together? The Nyaya answer was that in Upanaya, the two factors are not simply brought together, but one is said to qualify the other. In fact, it is for the same reason that Udyotakara, followed by the later Nayayikas, accepted Paramarsha as a part of the process of inference for oneself. So, Udyotakara said that after Vyapti Smarana, we should have Paramarsha, that is first Hetudhyana, then Vyapti Smarana, then Paramarsha, then Anumiti. This should be the process. So, Paramarsha is a necessary step, and this Paramarsha corresponds to what is Upanaya in pararthanumana. But the question here would be, even if we grant that cognition like Paramarsha takes place in the process of inference for oneself, is it necessary to include a separate statement in the process of inference for others? So, as a response to this, or as a result of this dissatisfaction about the 5-step model, we find that Mimamsakas and Vedantins, they said that instead of 5 steps, 3 steps are sufficient. So we find that they presented an alternative model of 3-step argument, and later on we will also see that some of them presented even 2-step argument. So we will see now that how Mimamsakas and Vedantins presented 3-step argument, and similarly Buddhist logician Dignaga also presented the model of 3-step argument. What Mimamsakas and Vedantins said was that out of the 5 steps, you can have either the first 3 steps or the last 3 steps. So if you have first 3 steps, then you will have Pratijna based argument, and then this Pratijna based argument can be either based on positive concomitance or negative concomitance. Similarly, if you have last 3 steps, then we will have Nigamana based argument. Again, this Nigamana based argument can be based on either positive concomitance or negative concomitance. So we have 4 varieties, as we can see on the screen. Pratijna based argument from positive concomitance will be the hill possesses fire because it possesses smoke. Whatever possesses smoke possesses fire, like the kitchen. Pratijna based argument from negative concomitance will be the hill possesses fire because it possesses smoke. Whatever lacks fire, lacks smoke, like the lake. Nigamana based argument from positive concomitance will be whatever possesses smoke possesses fire, like the kitchen. The hill possesses smoke, therefore it possesses fire. And Nigamana based argument from negative concomitance will be whatever lacks fire, lacks smoke, like the lake. The hill does not lack smoke, therefore the hill does not lack fire, that means it possesses fire. Now we come to the 3-step model of Dignaga. This was of course not based just on the criticism of Nyaya 5-step argument model, but Dignaga, as we have already seen in some of the previous modules, it was based on his conception of inference, which had 3 aspects or 3 elements, and accordingly 3 steps. So The Buddhist logician Dignaga also advocated the model of three-step argument, probably as a result of an independent theorization on inference. His theory of inference for oneself was based on the notion of triple character of probans, whereas his theory of inference for others focused on the notion of sadhana, that is proof, which consists of three elements: paksha, hetu and drishtanta. According to Dignaga, all the three elements had separate importance and none of them could be dispensed with. That is why he discussed the fallacies of each step separately. All the three were indispensable parts of the argument or proof which served as the inference for others. Accordingly, Dignaga prescribed three-step argument as follows. First will be paksha, which is analogous with pratidnya of nyaya. There is fire on the hill. Then hetu, because there is smoke on the hill. And third element was drishtanta, namely smoke is seen in at least some cases where fire is seen, for example in the kitchen, and smoke is never seen where fire is not seen, for example in a lake. So we saw that Mimamsakas and Vedantins replaced five-step argument of Nyaya by a three-step argument, and Dignaga also introduced a three-step argument from a different perspective. But we can say that the three-step argument introduced by Dignaga is similar to the pratidnya-based three-step argument which was presented by Mimamsakas and Vedantins. Dharmakirti had a different type of critique of five-step argument which led to his introduction of two-step argument, because even the model of three-step argument was subject to criticism from Dharmakirti's point of view. It was criticized by Buddhist logician Dharmakirti and also by Jaina logicians like Vadideva and Prabhachandra. Now, what was Dharmakirti's argument? Given the two premises, namely those of paksha dharmata and vyapti, the content of the declaration, that is pratidnya, follows by the very force of the statements, and hence the declaration is not supposed to be included in the argument. This was Dharmakirti's view. Then, according to him, it was not necessary to state positive concomitance as well as negative concomitance. Why? Because both the concomitances, namely positive and negative, being universal in nature, implied each other by the force of meaning. Hence, both should not be expressed in a single statement of proof, as it is redundant. And thirdly, in Nyaya model, drishtanta, udaharana, instance, was an essential aspect of argument. Similarly, Dignaga also had accepted drishtanta as a necessary element, but Dharmakirti said that drishtanta is not necessary, it is not logically necessary. If you state the vyapti which is universal, then it is not necessary to state drishtanta, because conclusion follows from just vyapti and paksha dharmata. Statement of drishtanta has no role to play in the proof of the conclusion. So according to him, drishtanta is not a necessary part of the argument, and therefore the two steps in an argument, namely statement of vyapti and statement of paksha dharmata, are sufficient. He also said that the specific order between premises is not required. That is, Naiyayikas had said that there should be a particular order among these steps. Dignaga also followed a particular order, namely paksha, hetu and drishtanta. But Dharmakirti said that among these two steps, namely vyapti and paksha dharmata, no specific order is required. You can either state Vyapti first and then Pakshadharmata, or state Pakshadharmata first and then Vyapti. From logical point of view, it does not make any difference, because in both ways they will entail the conclusion. So, in Dharmakirti's framework, we can have 4 forms of argument. That is, depending upon the change in the order of premises and depending upon what kind of Vyapti we are stating. Is it Anvaya Vyapti or Vyatireka Vyapti? As we saw, according to Dharmakirti, you can state either Anvaya Vyapti or Vyatireka Vyapti. It is not necessary to state both. So, accordingly, we have 2 alternative forms of the same argument. One form will be whatever has H means Hetu, must have S means Sadhya Dharma, and P has H, P means Paksha. So, whatever has Hetu must have Sadhya and Paksha has Sadhya. This will be one model. The other model will be Paksha has Sadhya, whatever has Hetu must have Sadhya. That is all. That is, first we state Pakshadharmata, then we state Anvaya Vyapti. Now, we come to the 2 models which accept Vyatireka Vyapti, which state Vyatireka Vyapti. So, either you state Vyapti first and then Pakshadharmata, that is, whatever lacks Sadhya must lack Hetu, and Paksha has Hetu. This will be one model, and the other model will be Paksha has Hetu, and then we say whatever lacks Sadhya must lack Hetu. So, we state Pakshadharmata first and then Vyatireka Vyapti. So, it should be noted here that according to Dharmakirti, all the above forms are logically equivalent with each other. Now, we come to the Jaina criticism, that is, just as Dharmakirti stated the 2-step model, similarly Jainas also presented a 2-step model, but these 2-step models are not identical with each other. Jainas had a different perspective, different approach to Anumana, and we have seen in one of the previous modules that Jainas present a kind of radical, devastating criticism of triple character theory of Dingnaga. And while criticizing this triple character theory, Jainas even criticize Paksha Sattva as one of the conditions of sound Hetu, that is, existence in Paksha. Now, if existence in Paksha is not necessary, then the model of inference, model of pararthanumana will change. So, this is the main point that leads Jainas to accept a different model. Now, here we will see that generally inference accepts a kind of triangular model. When we accept Pakshadharmata or Paksha Sattva as an important element of inference, then we have a triangular model. Now, what is this triangular model? As we can see on the screen, that there are 2 relations. One is the relation between Hetu and Paksha, that Hetu exists in Paksha, and the other relation is Hetu and Sadhya, that is Hetu Dharma and Sadhya Dharma. One relation is Dharma Dharmin relation, that is between the Paksha will be Dharmin and Hetu will be Dharma. So, Dharma Dharmin relation, and the other relation is Hetu Sadhya relation. So, on the basis of these 2 relations, what is established is the relation between Sadhya and Paksha. Now, this particular triangular model was actually questioned by Jainas. That is, on the basis of two relations, what we establish is the third relation. Jainas, through radical interrogation of the doctrine of triple character of probands, question even the dharma-dharmin relation 1 as the necessary prerequisite of a good inference. Thus, dharma-dharmin relation 1 means the relation between hetu and paksha. Naturally, they question the triangular structure of the inference as its basic model. In place of that, they introduce a linear model, or which can better be called an arrow model of inference, which can be depicted as follows. And you can see on the screen that here two elements. Now, in this new model, there will be two steps. One will be called hetu step and the other will be called paksha step. So, hetu is stated and paksha is proved. Now, how is it proved? It is proved either through tathopapatti or through anyathanupapatti. Now, what is tathopapatti and anyathanupapatti? Tathopapatti states that hetu is explicable only by accepting sadhya, and anyathanupapatti states that hetu cannot be explained without sadhya. So, tathopapatti means explicability only by that, and anyathanupapatti means non-explicability without that. So, on the basis of this type of relation, this is how the hetu-sadhya relation was understood by Jainas in the form of tathopapatti and anyathanupapatti. Of course, these tathopapatti and anyathanupapatti are like anvaya vyapti and vyatireka vyapti, two aspects of one and the same relation. So, according to this model, any argument must have two elements, namely paksha and hetu, that is thesis and reason. The relation between them in positive terms is called tathopapatti, and in negative terms it is called anyathanupapatti. So, to explain the inference of fire in the kitchen having seen smoke coming out of it, Jainas would present it as follows. Thesis will be, this kitchen possesses fire. But if we follow explicability format, that is tathopapatti format, then reason will be stated as, because the fact that kitchen possesses smoke can be explained only by accepting the existence of fire there. And if we follow non-explicability format, that is anyathanupapatti format, then reason will be stated as, because the fact that paksha possesses smoke cannot be explained without accepting the existence of fire there. Now, we have seen that Dharmakirti also presents a two-step model, and Jaina logicians also present a two-step model, but these two-step models are based on two different perspectives and therefore they are different. Now, how are they different? In Dharmakirti's model, paksha dharmata and vyapti are the only two premises, and whereas in Jaina model, actually there is only one premise, namely hetu, and paksha can also serve as the conclusion. Paksha is the thesis and hetu is the premise. So, there are only two steps. Then in Dharmakirti's model, we find that it denies the necessity of thesis as well as conclusion. So, Dharmakirti says that you need not state the thesis, that is pratigna is not necessary, and you need not state conclusion, that is nigamana is also not necessary. If you just state the premises, then conclusion necessarily follows, so conclusion will be redundant. Whereas in Jaina model, the statement of thesis is regarded as a necessary step. Then lastly, in Dharmakirti's model, the thesis need not be stated because it is entailed by the premises, whereas Jaina logicians say that the thesis should be mentioned even if it is entailed about the sadhya, a substratum of the sadhya. That is, there can be a doubt as to what is the substratum of the sadhya. So, in order to remove the doubt, the statement of thesis is necessary according to Jainas. So, so far so good. Now, I will introduce another topic, a related topic, but I am talking about again the Jaina approach. When Jainas say that it is not necessary to talk about include paksha dharmata or paksha sattva, so what is the status of the substratum of sadhya? Now here Jainas have some novel ideas about that. They say that the sadhya dharmi, that is substratum of sadhya, it is not necessary that it should be established to be existent and it should be accepted by both the parties, because this is what is insisted by all other schools, that this, for example, when you are proving the existence of fire on the mountain, the existence of mountain should be indubitable, it should be acceptable by both the parties. But then Jainas are asking a question, this is okay, but suppose you are going to prove the existence of something, then should you say that existence of that thing should be acceptable to both the parties, only then we can proceed to argue? There Jainas say that no, it is not necessary. So in certain cases, what we are going to prove, if we are going to prove existence of something or if we are going to prove non-existence of something, then the substratum of sadhya, that is sadhya dharmin, can be only vikalpa siddha. Vikalpa siddha means proved only as mental construct and not proved as something real, substantially real. For example, suppose a theist wants to prove the existence of God. So he may argue God exists because so and so. Now when he says God exists, God, if he says that God is the subject of the thesis, therefore the existence of God is already presupposed, it is understood. The opponent may say that you are presupposing the existence of God and then saying that God exists. So there is no point in proving the existence of God at all. Here Jainas are saying that no, this kind of argument is possible. Here we will say that God, the subject term, really does not refer to what exists and what is acceptable to both the parties, but it refers to only the concept of God. It refers to something which is mentally constructed. So God as a mental construct can be understood by both the parties. Even one who does not believe in God, he can say that, okay, I can understand the concept of God, I can understand God as a mental construct, but I want to say that this mental construct does not refer to anything real in the actual world. So here the subject term of the inference will be vikalpa siddha, which is established through mental construct and not established through pramanas. So we have two types of sadhya dharmins here. One is, at least two. One is vikalpa siddha and the other is pramana siddha. When you are going to prove existence or non-existence of something, the subject term, that is sadhya dharmin, will be vikalpa siddha. On the other hand, if we are going to prove some other property, not existence or non-existence, then we can say that the sadhya dharmin should be pramana siddha, but sadhya dharma will not be pramana siddha there, so it will be a matter of debate, matter of dispute. And thirdly, we can also talk of vikalpa pramana siddha. That is, sometimes the sadhya dharmin could be partly vikalpa siddha, partly pramana siddha. For example, suppose somebody is trying to prove that sound is impermanent. Now, when he says sound is impermanent, he is not talking about a particular instance of sound, but he is talking about the class of all sounds. Now, from this class of all sounds, some sounds may be given. The sound that I am hearing now, it is given to me, it is pramana siddha for me. But the remaining members of this class may not be pramana siddha for me, so they could be just vikalpa siddha. So when we are talking about a class as the subject term of the thesis, we are talking of something which is partly pramana siddha, partly vikalpa siddha, and therefore Jainas say that sometimes this sadhya dharmi can be vikalpa pramana siddha. So we saw that Jainas are having a different approach to inference and different approach to the steps in the argument also. We also find that Jainas are not adhering to this particular view that in every inference there should be 2 and only 2 steps. Only then that type of inference is acceptable. But they are comparatively liberal because they say that although from purely logical point of view 2 steps are necessary and sufficient for a good argument, Jainas are known to be non-absolutist, and therefore they allow other possibilities. They introduce an alternative concept of the constituent of proof, namely justification, that is samarthana. And justification means establishing invariable concomitance of hetu with sadhya by ruling out all the fallacies. So if one presents argument as a kind of justification, then it will be comparatively elaborate. Similarly, they make a distinction between an argument made for enlightening an ignorant person and an argument made in a debate with a learned person. That is, Bala Vyutpatti and Vyutpannamati. Ignorant person, enlightening an ignorant person means Bala Vyutpatti. So, if you are arguing with an ignorant person, then it is possible that you have to give an elaborate argument. So, if you give just 2-step argument, then that may not convince the other person, that may not be intelligible to the other person because the other person is ignorant. If on the other hand the other person is knowledgeable, learned, then even 2-step argument may suffice for him. So, while arguing for enlightening an ignorant person, one can use other steps such as udaharana, upanaya, nigamana, the steps which are accepted by Nayayikas could be used. So, they are not, Jainas are not saying that these steps should not be used, but they are saying that while having a debate with a learned person, these additional steps are not necessary, so they should not be used. Only 2 steps, namely paksha and hetu, can be used there. In order to have some more details about what I have said, you can see the e-text of this particular module and also see the references which are given at the end so that you can have some more knowledge, more information about this topic. Thank you.